I have always loved road trips. Some of my earliest memories were in a car driving with my family going somewhere. As the son of a father with incurable wanderlust, traveling by road just seems to be in my blood. We would just pack up the family and go. My memories of these trips were among the fondest and most vivid of my childhood. And by the time I reached driving age, I had been on countless road trips throughout much of the South, the Midwest, and parts of the West. Getting behind the wheel of an automobile meant freedom and adventure, and when I was old enough to journey alone, my choice was always the road. New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah became my destinations. Places like Bryce Canyon, Arches, Canyonlands, and the Grand Canyon were the places that road trips took me. So captivated by the West was I that I moved to Utah, where I met my wife and began my family. When I finished graduate school, I was hired to be a professor, and we settled in Arkansas. And when my children were old enough, we also hit the road. We have ventured out west repeatedly, and we have seen some amazing places together. My parents showed me that there was no better way to discover America than to see it from the road. It was important that our children learned how vast and incredible the landscapes are in the country that they call home. It was important that they knew that reaching them was as easy as getting in a car and driving. It was on one of these road trips that the idea for a road trip class was born, an experiential education college course that showed as much as it told. In the fall of 2012, I began to plan a course that would focus on some of the most important places in the United States, our national parks. The plan was for us to study the history, the policy, and the practices of the national parks, and then visit the parks we studied. In May of 2013, I packed up my family and my class of 10 college students, and we hit the road. That trip was incredible. That trip was life-changing. Since then, this experiment has become a college course taught on a regular rotation, and we have collectively traveled almost 10,000 miles and visited over 15 parks. This is the story of one of those classes. This is the story of that journey. This is the story of the power of a road trip.
I'm Derek Davis. I'm a junior at the University of the Ozarks, and I'm from Mesquite, Texas, with a major of environmental studies. It's always been one of my dreams to see the Grand Canyon, and the opportunity came along with the class and with a great group of friends to take advantage of what the school has to offer.
Well, my name is Jonathan Barham. I'm a second semester junior with an environmental studies major from Emmett, Arkansas. Well, I wanted to have an experience that few people get. I wanted to challenge myself. I'm usually a pretty outgoing person, but I wanted to go to places I've never been before, and I wanted to enhance my understanding of our country.
My name is Tristan Leonard. I'm from Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. I'm an environmental studies major. Getting to experience these new places is going to be, it's really exciting for me right now. I can't wait to be out there.
My name is Jake Sawyer. I am a sophomore English and environmental studies major from Mena, Arkansas. Getting to hang out with all the people we have in the class, like it's a really fun group of good folks. So I'm looking forward to that. I'd say getting to check out some of the more remote areas of the different parks.
So my name is Erica Henderson. I'm a senior at the University of Ozarks, and I'm from Highland Village, Texas. Kind of experiencing my home country wilderness, whereas I'm so used to seeing international wilderness in like Europe or Central and South America. So I'm looking forward to seeing America's wilderness.
I am Christina Waddle, and my major is environmental studies currently. And I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, but like I live outside Kansas City, so I'm from like Pleasant Hill, Missouri. I wanted to take this class just because I want the experience, I guess. Like I really, really I never really got the chance, I guess, to go to national parks, and this is like my chance to go.
I'm Kat Thompson. I was born in Conway, Arkansas, and about 8 years old, I went and traveled with my dad, and then I went back to Conway to graduate my senior year. I'm looking forward to Zion and Arches, just because I've heard like the atmosphere is just so different, and it's just different vibes, and it feels completely strange compared to Arkansas.
All right, I'm Dr. Warren Skyniers, Assistant Professor of Biology. I'm originally from California, around Lancaster, Palmdale, about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. Went to school at UC Irvine in California, a bachelor's in ecology and evolutionary biology. Did my PhD at Texas A&M in entomology. I've always been at larger schools. Those schools I mentioned are all 30,000 plus student schools. Teaching there is very different. You have large classes. Students who don't even know who you are or won't be talk to you. They're too intimidated to talk to the professor. But here on this small campus, students introduce themselves, they talk to you, they say hi.
We're getting ready to see America, and I think that is something that people in your position don't always get a chance to do or don't take the time to do. The reason why we're doing this class is because of this experience. Okay, I'm very passionate about experiential education. It excites me to see people go to new places and experience new things. But most importantly, we're going to have possibly the experience of a lifetime. Yeah! Let's get on the road. Let's go. Let's get to Lubbock, Texas.
So Carlsbad Caverns was our first park that we went to. We had to drive for 2 days across pretty much the entire state of Texas to get there.
Yeah, Texas.
Show me the flag.
I don't know if I've ever been in a cave system that was so deep, so complex, but yet so well visited. I mean, it did take my breath away, true, but
We arrived at Carlsbad Caverns National Park the morning of March 17th to a packed parking lot and a busy visitor center. There were long lines and hundreds of people.
It was very busy. I was kind of worried about that initially, but it worked out well. They had 2 entrances to the actual caverns below. There was one elevator, and then there was this trail where you actually you just start from the visitor center, walk down into the mouth of the cave. And we took that way, and I'm really glad we did, because I feel like if you just get in an elevator and end up and it just kind of, sticks you out in the caverns, that doesn't really get the same experience as you're walking down like into this just open maw of the earth, and you're just descending down. I feel like it's
It's almost like you earn it.
yes, it is more. It's like you earn it.
When I think of national parks, I think of like mountains and trees, and I didn't think of a cave. Or it was sort of it was awesome going in. I just wasn't expecting it to have like lights and so many people around. But it was unique because you can kind of see nature in a different perspective.
I think my favorite part was figuring out all the names for the little things. So like the little bumpy areas, that's called the popcorn, and then the long like ribbon looking ones, that's called curtains. And so it's cool to like learn all of that. And then the big room where there was less people was my favorite by far.
Definitely had no idea it was gonna be that big. Like I had no idea. The pictures, and it's like so big that like no cameras can like actually capture it unless you have like a huge light or something. But even I don't know, because like you saw that one part where it was like a huge, just like dome middle part, and it was just super high up. They had like one little tiny light, and then it was like a dome, and then like you could see more darkness, but that was it.
Carlsbad Caverns is probably my second favorite park, actually. As small as it was, just showing up, it's unimpressive, and then like you walk down into the caverns, it's a whole new world that opens up, and it drops like 10, 15 degrees. It's, I don't know, breathtaking. The hike out was really fast because Jonathan said he wasn't going to fall behind, and Christina took that as a personal challenge. So
the hike up was, they undersold that. I mean, I'm a fairly well-built guy, but that hike was pretty rough.
Jonathan was taking the lead with his hiking staff, and was talking about how he was going to set the pace and that sort of thing. He started breathing a little heavy, and Christina passed him, and I made it a big deal because it's Jonathan, and you've got to work him up somehow.
It was kind of funny though, because like Jonathan kept trying to race me because he wanted to be in the front, and then I kept like passing him just because I was like, pacing myself, and Jonathan like, and he'd go, and then he'd slow down, and then he'd go, and then he got really tired, and I was like, and so we all kind of like slowed down, but that was probably the funny part. So it kind of made it kind of fun, I guess. It wasn't like awful.
Hike down was easy. Hike up was it was sweaty, but it was a good time.
Yeah.
Because we went. It was me, Scaniers, and Jesus, and we just had good conversations.
Yeah.
And that's also one part I liked about the trip a lot too, was the idea of every time we went on a hike or something, there wasn't individual groups or cliques. Everyone ended up interacting with each other, even if we did split off in groups because we had to. Like sometimes we were a big group, sometimes we were small groups, but I feel like every time we went on a hike, I was with somebody different, and that was a good time too.
We left Carlsbad Caverns in the early afternoon and traveled the 45 miles south back into Texas to set up camp at the Guadalupe Mountains National Park. This would be the group's first night of camping.
I liked Guadalupe a lot. My favorite part was when we went to the sign to take like the picture. I like the grass and then like the mountains, and the mountains looked like, I don't know, they just looked like they'd been scrunched together and they had like these waves in them, and it looked really cool.
In reality, it might be my second favorite park or third favorite park that we went to, like retrospectively, just because it was very different from, I guess you could say, like the big poster parks, like, you know, Grand Canyon and Zion and Arches, the ones that everybody knows about, because everybody knows about them, but everybody also knows about them. So you've got huge visitor centers and massive amounts of people and everything, and lots of infrastructure. But Guadalupe Mountains, it was just kind of, it was a lot more remote and really more actually wild feeling.
So getting to Guadalupe, while pulling into the campsite we were doing, there's a sign that said possible chance of high winds, and I was like, oh man, I mean, like, I've been in one of those hurricane simulators at a mall, so this wind's not gonna be too bad.
Guadalupe Mountains was the first park that we stopped at and spent the night. And it was kind of scary at first. It was windy, and it started to rain on us a little bit during the nighttime. And but that was, you know, that's a whole part of nature. I mean, you're not going to go out there and expect beautiful weather all the time. You know, it's going to be scary at first.
Setting up tents was, it would have been a smart idea to put our tent on the lowest ground so there's not as much wind, but Tristan, my tent buddy, decided to put it as high as we could, and wasn't much wind breaking for us there, so especially that night, there's a lot of wind and rain, and it's hard to sleep, just the tent smacking you. So, well, if it happens, it's our fault.
Guadalupe didn't quite go as planned.
So tell me about what happened at Guadalupe. Or so tell me your perspective about what happened at Guadalupe.
Okay, so I was helping Derek get set up for dinner, and everybody had already set up tents, and all of a sudden I hear a loud spray.
I heard you, Dr. Weiss, like, yell out, and then I heard all of the kids, like, yelling and screaming and crying, and I didn't know what was going on, but I was thinking, oh, it's just, I'm sure they're fine. They just probably, somebody just tripped and something. Apparently you had a, like this milk crate of tools and things in it, which included a can of bear mace that the little pin had been removed, and a mallet, I think, that dropped and hit the bear mace and went off, sprayed your feet, and also drifted into the tent where all the kids were.
And saw the bear mace go off, and literally just a mist of it came this way, a mist of it came that way, and went straight to your ankle. And I didn't think it was going to hurt your ankle that bad. I usually think bear mace is just harm you in the face, or just if you breathe it in general. But yeah, I forgot it's actually a chemical that can actually burn you. So
I just remember you ran over and you're like, and your foot was orange. You're kind of like pacing. I'm like, and I'm filling a pot of water for dinner. I'm like, what's going on? And then I hear people crying. I'm like, what? And you're like, can I borrow that pot of water? And you like took it, and I was like, what? What's going on? And I'm
Incident. I was kind of scared at first because all I could hear was screaming and crying, and I was like, oh no, something's wrong. And me and Kat stopped what she was doing. And I saw your wife running out with Alice. You came over to us to pour the water on your feet.
Right.
And I knew in your mind you're screaming and you're probably in pain. And that scared me because I'm like, he's keeping it in. He's holding it in. I can tell. And so we just poured water on and try to get things going and get things, ready to go.
you load your daughters up into the van and you tell us the situation, what's going on. And when you left, we, finished setting up for dinner and aired your tent out and, spread the gravel around to where it wasn't stagnant there.
And so then we were just kind of standing around like, well, what do we do now? Because it's the first night camping of the trip, and it's all your cooking equipment, and we have the food and we have everything, but we're just kind of like, well, what do we do now?
Had a trial by fire, wasn't it?
It was, and so at one point we're worried about you and the kids and everything, and then it's like, well, we have to fend for ourselves now, but it ended up working real well.
So sitting in Carlsbad, New Mexico in the emergency room because my bear mace deployed and sprayed all over my feet, and all of my children got it through inhalation. Luckily everybody checks out, everybody's fine, but this is going to be a expensive mistake. After being released from the emergency room well after midnight, my family and I stayed in Carlsbad, New Mexico, leaving the group to camp in the Guadalupe Mountains on their own.
I think one of the more interesting encounters took place when one of our good colleagues spotted a mountain lion, which I'd never really seen one in the wild in the fur before.
Come back to the camp and see a mountain lion. I'm the only one in camp besides Dr. Sconyers, and he's on the phone in his tent. So I asked him if I should tell everybody or kind of keep it on the down low because you don't want everyone freaking out. And he's like, yeah. I was thinking, oh, that's awfully optimistic. I just told you there was a mountain lion right outside your tent. And he says, what? And I was like, I just saw a mountain lion. He's like, wait, hold on. And he gets off the phone and he tells me that he had been on the phone and asks me to repeat what I had just said.
The way he described it, it was as though it saw who we were and left. It wasn't sticking around or being curious. So that made me feel a little bit better. But still, when I was in my tent, the wind itself was keeping me awake a little bit as it was, but knowing that, that wind could also be a mountain lion pawing at my tent kept me awake as well. So I had my pocket knife, not my pocket knife, but I had my knife out. And it wouldn't have done very much, but it made me feel a little bit better.
But we did still get to hike back up into the mountains a little way, and it was just like the views were great. It was an entirely different, I guess, kind of biome than I'd ever been in before, and really different from any other we went to on the trip. And it was really beautiful. I'm also a Cormac McCarthy fan, and that's just where so much of his stuff is set, is right in the Guadalupe Mountains, so I was kind of geeking out over that.
So we decided to go on the Devil's Hall Trail because they said it was pretty scenic. We went to the visitation center. They told us this is probably one of the best ones you can go on if you guys are in a time crunch. My favorite part about the Devil's Hall, the trail, was the fact that it changed in elevation and it changed in different terrains the whole way through it. So you'd be walking up a mountain that's just a gravel road, not even a road, just a gravel trail, and then it just starts going into like little big rocks, just like a steep climb down, and then there's just a bunch of like a waterway where a river used to be, where just a bunch of rock beds are that you have to climb over, where you didn't just have to use your feet and hike up, hike down. You had to, use your hands to push yourself up some places and go around. And we didn't finish the whole trail, but the main part we got to was the big picture. I don't remember what it's called, but it looked like a quarry in my opinion, and it was kind of peaceful. It looked like if it definitely rained, we might have been a bad situation there too.
Saguaro was, I know, it was kind of like one of those little ones that's just like, oh, it's on the route, so we're going to stop off here and we'll check it out. I was like, okay, it'll be a cool little pit stop and everything. And my girlfriend had actually lived in Tucson last summer, or a couple summers ago, with her dad out there, and she kept telling me about, oh, the saguaro cactus, they're just so cool, and you have to go and check this out and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure they're great. We got out there, and it exceeded my expectations.
Oh my gosh,
Let's just keep zooming over this bit.
weird. I've never seen cactuses in real life.
I know, they're strange. Not this many of them.
Whoa.
The cacti and the plant life there are just completely out of this world. You would not, you see those cacti somewhere else, television media, the typical cactus with the two, the tall part and the arms, and you don't see those very often. But then when you go there, not only do you see them, but they're gigantic.
By the time we reached the Saguaro Visitor Center, we had been on the road for almost 1,000 miles. The group was becoming more comfortable and started to get a little silly.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah. That dance was all right.
Is that right?
Average.
So why is he doing it all the time?
I don't know.
Just give us another one of those.
I've heard it called different things. The most common one is the floss. So it's this sort of like you shift your hips one way and rotate your arms the other way, and you just kind of work back and forth. I can, sort of, some, a bit.
Not as good as him.
No,
He
not
does it all the time.
no, not as good as Derek. I don't have the practice.
Wait, what is it? It's like this. No, this is the base. Oh, look at my hat. This looks like you're doing weird poses.
It's just a really cool place in general. Like really different. Like the cactuses were like equivalent of trees here. They're just everywhere. You don't expect that. And like just like being next to it and like looking up at this huge thing that's like taking years to grow is really cool.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like a small person next to a huge cactus.
I had no idea that cactus is bigger than a human. I thought they were about 6 foot, 7 foot tall, and one of my favorite pictures we have of the trip was when me and Kat were hugging a tree, and it's almost 15, 16 feet tall, and kind of hurt a little bit, but I mean, it's great for a picture opportunity. I enjoyed the trip there. I didn't realize how many cactuses actually grow there. I thought it was you see one or two every so, like, mile or so. When we got to the saguaro, and like I said, the trees were big, or not trees, the cactuses were big. But even though it was a pretty quick hike, it was there and back, you could still see a lot of stuff that other places didn't have. It had a uniqueness, even though it was mainly a drive-through part, but I enjoyed that too.
Well, it was fairly remote. So many cactuses, it was incredible, but the views were absolutely gorgeous, and those petroglyphs amazed me. I mean, they've survived for what, 2,500 years, perhaps?
I mean, just when you look up and you've got this thing, it's like a cactus. You're used to seeing about like that, and it's 40 feet tall. I mean, that just kind of wows you a little bit. And then when there's not just one, but there's another one over here, and there's another one over here, and they're stretching all the way up the side of this mountain. They're stretching all the way out there in the distance, and it's a legitimate forest of them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was prepared for Grand Canyon, all right? I was ready. I knew what I was going to do. So I had this great like line worked out and everything. I was going to act all cynical. And I was just going to walk up, to the Grand Canyon and look over the rim and just kind of look, vaguely disappointed. And then I was going to look around at all the big crowd of people and the commercial tourism and everything. And I was going to turn to whoever was closest to me and say, well, that's a larger than average hole in the ground. And it was going to be great. And I was going to be all like hard-boiled and everything. I I got up to the canyon rim, and we just walked up like through these juniper trees, and just boom, there it is. And I just could not summon up that much cynicism, It was just really a take your breath away moment.
It's breathtaking for sure, but getting to see everything from different angles, I don't know. Pictures don't do it justice. You say that in every single park you go to on this trip, but the Grand Canyon really is another beast in itself.
That night, we ended up going to, that was one of my favorite parts of the Grand Canyon, was we went stargazing. I've been stargazing before, but not to a place where it's complete darkness, you can't see anything, and being able to see stars that actually, like the Big Dipper and all. I've seen stars, I've never been able to picture the Big Dipper, the Gemini, the Sagittarius.
Because I always considered wilderness as something that you see in Arkansas. For example, a bunch of trees, wildlife, and it's all recluse, and there's moss on the trails, not a lot of people go on it. And then as the trip proceeded, I realized, oh, this cave is wilderness. Oh, this desert, it's wilderness. The Grand Canyon's wilderness. So I liked how I see the wild as something natural, not as something with trees.
Many of the students had never seen the Grand Canyon, so hiking the rim was very exciting for the group. Seeing their faces as they looked over the canyon was amazing.
Yeah?
Down there. We saw you. We saw you. Yeah, I was
We
freaking
didn't see
out.
the feet dangling, thank God.
Grand Canyon was amazing. It didn't even seem real. It seemed like fake. Like you looked at it, you're like, that's not real, When we got there at sunset, it was beautiful.
And it's crazy because, I'm sitting on a paved trail with a metal railing in between me and this thing. And we got out to Mather Point, and there's 40, 50 people out there with us who are all snapping pictures and doing, the typical touristy things, speaking in 3 or 4 different languages and in a variety of accents. But yet, this canyon that's out there is still amazing. And everyone who's there is experiencing this thing together and enjoying it together and smiling and laughing and taking pictures for each other. People who barely speak English or whatever, or taking a picture for each other. And it was just kind of like because I looked at the canyon and that was, of course, incredible. But then just that I guess that the way it was kind of brings all those people together, and it's brought all these people from these disparate lifestyles and backgrounds together, and they're just enjoying this thing.
Sunset was really cool, but I think the sunrise kind of took it. I got a little teary-eyed when I saw the sunrise. I was by myself, and I was just staring it out on the canyon. It was just so beautiful, and if I ever, feel stressed or situations going on, I would think of that, and it just kind of struck me.
It makes you feel very, very, very small. A mile deep, 10 miles wide in some places. Colors I'd never seen before.
Every once in a while, it'd just be no one. I wouldn't run into anybody for 10 minutes or so at a time. And it was just nice to hear nothing, and how quiet it was, and the open space of the Grand Canyon on the left side there was just breathtaking to see that emptiness and how far you're really seeing. You're seeing miles across, and to have a unobstructed view like that was just great. And so I took dozens of pictures and
Some of the selfies.
some of the selfies, yeah, some of the selfies.
So see, Sconyers, he liked to capture a different face at each place. So like, is his face doing something funny, or like making some face and like it had like the background?
The selfie thing is me taking a nice background. There's a nice background behind me, but I do some sort of ugly face. And some sort of, I'm freaking out, or I'm not looking at I'm acting as though I'm freaking out about something, or I'm looking somewhere else, or I'm just distorting my face in some way. And that just became a thing. I took one selfie, I think, like that, and it was funny to me that I wasn't really paying attention to the camera. I was just doing something else while I had this majestic background behind me. And so it became a thing of having the contrast of something beautiful behind me, but then having such an ugly face going with it. I just found it entertaining, and so did some of the students.
You've ever done before?
I don't think so. No, I think that was a pure project from this trip. Yeah.
What did you think about that drive from Grand Canyon to Zion?
I'm just like, it was phenomenal. I couldn't really, I know it's dangerous, but I couldn't like keep my eyes on the road and just like look around at the same time.
You were the one driving?
Yeah, and I had the privilege to drive.
Okay.
That was really cool to drive through Zion, because I don't see that a lot. Anna is just like, I'm driving and I'm looking up, I'm like, Christina, take a video for me.
But yeah, it was really cool. It really, like, I guess, captured the West for me. That road definitely did, like in the movies. And then we saw someone actually filming like a commercial or something, or a movie. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, it literally, like, you look at it and you're like, no, this is the West.
Yeah. This is the bridge.
Is it? This bridge scared the bejesus out of me.
I liked the color. Like, the river was dark green, and then the canyons were just this brown, and it looked beautiful with the blue sky. And Jake and I we tried to figure out how far the bridge was from the Colorado River. And so we spit, and so we'd spit and we'd count how many seconds it would take to hit the water. It took like 5 seconds, and Jake was like, okay, well, I don't really know how long that is. And so he spit to this like metal sheet that's underneath, and he's like, okay, that's about 100 feet, and it took 1 second. So he times it, and it's 500 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I go inside the gift shop, and I was like, how far is this bridge from the river? And she said, it's about 500 feet. And so I just thought it was cool.
Nice.
That, English major and a science major where we're using math to figure out how high up a bridge
Your
was.
teachers would be proud.
Yeah. Go high school algebra.
Looking at the Colorado River from the Navajo Bridge is truly one of the best parts of the drive from the Grand Canyon to Zion National Park. The view of the red vermilion cliffs and the green water is a sight to behold.
Once you get closer to Zion, you're in those canyons, all the rock formations on the side. It's just astounding, the things you can see, and especially around once you get into Utah and Arizona too, Utah, Mexico, New Mexico area. All of those rock formations are just, you just forget that these places exist, let alone that they exist in the United States.
So, Zion, it was definitely my favorite by far. And I mean, I'm biased a little bit because I was researching it and I kind of knew more about it from the first. But it was really just, I've got this water bottle that I bought there. It's a Zion Canyon Nalgene. It says on it, like, no place on earth. And I really believe that, like, because it's unlike any place I've ever been to, read about, heard of, or seen in pictures.
The drive into it was absolutely amazing. About, I'd say 30 minutes before we ever got to the park was the big mind-blowing part, because I've never seen such strange structures. Like, it looks like a canyon, but still a mountain at the same time, because it was like a smooth canyon, not so rigid. And once we got into the park and we went through the tunnel, it was like entering some Lord of the Rings fantasy experience, because you just go around the mountain and then you go through that bridge, and you just instantly just see a whole new world. The mountains were smooth and beautiful colors, and I don't know, it was something I'd never seen before. And we got to the park, and the ground was like red, like it's bright red, but the mountains were still like, part of it was green and lush, and part of it was like gray. I don't know. The colors is what got me at Zion.
My first thoughts of Zion was, honestly, I think this is probably going to be one of the best parks we go to. And the reason I felt that way is just because I never knew about Zion. So seeing it as it was like something out of the ordinary. Like, I've seen pictures of Grand Canyon, I've seen Rocky Mountains, I've seen things that people put on postcards. Zion's had its own uniqueness in my opinion. It was, I don't want to say more beautiful, but I felt like it just had its own type of topography and terrains that no other park has.
It definitely wasn't paved last time we came here. Look, Dad, this is another waterfall. Dad, look.
Yeah, there was a traffic jam anyway.
The park is so huge. The whole thing was really well laid out, and the shuttle service was cool. That it was situated along the river was also awesome. It's just like a little oasis in the middle of the desert after all the driving that we had done.
Well, Emerald Pools Trail, that one was incredible. When we got to the end, that was probably one of the highlights, one of the many highlights of the trip. It was very, very humbling. Okay. Seeing all those waterfalls that are well over 100, 150 feet high, and seeing where you hear this all the time, but water is the lifeblood of the desert. That's one of the many ways that you can prove it.
I think Zion kind of brought like a spiritual sense in a way. So did the Grand Canyon, but I think Zion National Park was probably my top favorite. The Temple of Sinawava Trail, it was kind of out of the way. There wasn't that many people on it, and when we got to the river part where we couldn't really go in, I just kind of stood there and just took it all in, and I thought, like, wow, this is such an amazing experience that I got to do, and it just kind of brought myself to let go and just enjoy nature as it is.
Dr. Sconyers, myself, Erica, and Jonathan went up to the head of the valley at the Temple of Sinawava, and we hiked up that, which was pretty incredible. Just because that's where the canyon walls really start to kind of come together. So you might have 50 yards between the walls, and then 20, and then 10. And there's just the river flowing through all that.
So beautiful. It's almost like anything you could want. You've got, going down into the canyon, you've got canyon up on top, you've got level ground, you've got the sheer cliff face. Then the farther down you go, the more different ecosystems you encounter, until eventually you get to the Virgin River, which I can't say anything really that could do justice. The fact that we found a stonefly there gives proof that it's a very, very, very pure stream.
It's a rare insect in that it's very picky about where it lives. It lives in streams, around stream areas, but it's like a canary in the gold mine. A insect being present sort of denotes how well the park is doing and how it's staying somewhat healthy. And so having that, it was painful that I couldn't keep the insect. I couldn't collect it. It was national park. But I was still able to take some pictures and upload to iNaturalist. So it was nice to see that, because I had not seen that insect in person until the park. So.
that was probably the best bit of camping over the whole trip. I'm not going to lie.
What made it the best?
Well, the fact that we were able to just sit back, relax, take it in. I mean, we had a good group of people all the way through, but at Zion, you really felt like, I don't know if I could really put it into words, but I felt like, man, this is the life. I don't have a worry in the world at this point.
That one was also cool because we got to camp like right near the mountains, and like both sides of you just feel so tiny. You're like camping in between these two giant like mountains, and like you can't even see the sun come up or set until like a certain point because they're so high up, you know? So that was pretty cool.
And just like coming out of the tents in the morning and looking up and having the canyon walls just like rising up above you, and the watchman over here with the sun like coming up kind of behind it, that was really just incredible.
I remember at one point we all just kind of listened to Jake and a few other people sing, and that was really nice. I think they sang like Constant Sorrow or something like that by the Soggy Bottom Boys. So that was enjoyable.
One of my favorite things about camping anywhere, anytime, has always been just when you've got a fire and everyone's just kind of clustered around it, you know, staring into the flames. And there's nothing even very, that's what you might seem like is entertaining about that, but every time I go camping, I'm like, well, it's been dark for 2 hours now, so I'm probably going to go on to bed. But when you're just sitting around that campfire and like staring into the coals and everybody's just talking, and maybe you've got somebody picking a guitar or playing some music or something, that's one of my favorite experiences, and we got to have that at Zion, which I really enjoyed.
I liked how at that point in time, since it was so far into the week, we actually got down who's going to cook, you know, how is it all going to go down, who's going to do dishes, and it became really easy to set up camp and then sit down at a fire and talk. And I really like that.
I opened my tent and I saw we was walking, well, I think it was Reese. He was walking straight through camp. No, he was, I thought I saw him.
So, Erica, what are we having for breakfast?
Huevos and churros.
Nice. Morning, Dr. Skyers.
So these trips are nice in that you can sort of be less formal with the students and have conversations with them that you would have otherwise in the classroom or on campus.
Probably the worst part about that when camping was I left the tent open just the smallest hairline, and a squirrel got in, just had some sunflower seeds spread all through the tent. So that was probably the worst part of that, the camping part of that. But I enjoyed staying there. The biggest thing was being able to take some time to yourself and relax and not feel rushed the whole time. Because a lot of the time we went to the parks, we'd get there, be able to do something, and then have to, sleep and then get ready to go for the next place. And that place, you could settle down, not have to worry about things, cook a meal, eat some food, and just sit and relax and enjoy the scenery.
One, we all had to get up that morning because it was supposed to rain at Zion. So we woke up at like 6:30 in the morning and we were up by 6:30 and like taking down the tent, rolling out of the campground by 8. We didn't rain on. But by the time we got to Bryce Canyon, it was raining. It was the coldest and the wettest and the most inclement weather that we had on the entire trip, really. And so nobody really wanted to be out of the vans for longer than possible. We were all also pretty tired. So I ran out there and looked at the views and we were like, oh yeah, this is nice. Oh, that's so cool.
I know it was rainy and cold, but that was actually I liked that that weather because it was just you felt like you were actually out there in the wilderness, even though you're on a paved road and a railing. But it's just, after visiting that, I was thinking about, like, the history of how that canyon formed, and same with the Grand Canyon. It's unimaginable how those canyons formed, and it's mind-blowing.
And then the rock formations is just beautiful, and all the ridges and the dig outs from all the and seeing that really high places and looking out and seeing the sort of the cuts in the rocks and everything, how it's almost like fingers going through and sort of sculpting everything.
The hoodoos were amazing. It was really misty, so you couldn't see very far, but I kind of appreciated that because you could look out and you could only see the hoodoos and then a white mist in the background. And I don't know, I liked how it was kind of a mystery, I guess, while we looked out.
Those rock formations really just caught my eye. Those hoodoos, they stood out. And the first guy that really discovered it, Mr. Bryce, I agree with him when he said it's a tough place to find a stray cow.
So the first trail we did was one that went into like a valley style. I think it was an unintentional walk that we all did. And at the end, once you get to the end of the trail, you could look out and you could see this little I pillar, like it looked like the letter I, and like a small arch beside it. And you're like, what is this? This looks really cool. I want to go over there. And then the next viewing site we went, I was actually there. So it was pretty cool to get an idea of how far it was, because we were like, oh, we can walk to that. It's like a few miles. And no, it was probably like 20 miles away.
The students said we went for a little bit of a hike, and that was nice because we got to get into the rock formations. For the other places, there's less of that just because of how big they are and how there's reduced trail access, and some of them are more technical hikes. But for this park, we're actually able to climb on some of the larger rocks. The arches was great. The arches are really nice, and being able to see the balancing rock and being able to see just these crazy formations that they get carved into.
To think that this was formed when the rock was just being weathered away by rock, hitting it from the wind, by water, there's no place like it on Earth, really.
Kind of reminded me of that book, Desert Solitaire, with Edward Abbey, and me and Jake were making quotes, and we traveled along through a trail. Apparently that's where Edward Abbey was, and that was cool how I was in the same park as he was, and it was just kind of one of those moments that, this is a place I may never get to see again, and just, hopefully I will, but take it all in at that point. And yeah, the hiking and just being with the group, and I think being with the group is probably makes it better.
Did a little bit of stuff that evening, but then went and got in a hotel, went to the Moab Brewery, had a fun time. And then the next morning, we woke up pretty early, not quite like as early as we'd originally thought about, because we'd originally planned to hike up to Delicate Arch at sunrise. Didn't get to do that, but we got up early. Started driving out there about 7:30. I think it was around 8 because the sun was just coming up as we were driving into Arches, and it was absolutely beautiful because you had this like cloud ceiling really low right over everything.
I remember like getting on the trail and like looking off into the side and like seeing the clouds, and I'm like, but we wouldn't be on this trail like there was a storm coming. It's not gonna hit us. So we kept going, and it looked like it was like going that way. And then like we got like right to the sheetrock part where it's like exposed rock, and then like I turned around and looked and I saw like it was kind of coming. I was like,
But we kept going a little bit further, at least to get to the top of it, and then turn back around. But when we got to the top of it, that's when the weather quickly came into play.
And we were like right there at the Delicate Arch, like, you know, almost could see it. But then it started thundering pretty bad, and you know, you yelled, "All right, we're going back, we're turning around." And I was like, I don't know, what are we turning around for? I mean, it's fine. And then turn around and look and saw that those, you know, like that ink soup that had been off in the distance, it was kind of cool looking, was now like right on top of us.
We hear you say to turn around, and Jake echoes you and tells us to turn around. So we turn around and we see the storm rolling in, and it's on us at this point. And as soon as we leave the, like, I guess canyon area where the like slot trail was, it starts hailing. And Christina's right in front of me with her camera, and she takes off her rain jacket to wrap her camera up and hands me this big fluffy jacket, you know, this 650 pill Columbia jacket, and tells me to put it in her backpack, which is already half full, and it's just a regular sized backpack. So I'm sitting there getting hailed on by pea-sized hail and 40-mile-an-hour winds, trying to put this camera in a backpack rather than getting behind the tree.
And then I was more worried about my camera getting wet too. So like I told Tristan, I was like, put my camera in my bag. And he like wrapped it up with my only jacket that was like waterproof. Put it in my bag. And then it started hailing and raining, and I didn't have any like rain jacket, but it was okay.
It's like, wow, this rain like really hurts. Hurts really bad, and it must be because it's dry or something. And Jake's like, no, that's hail. And I was like, oh no. And so him and I are ducking under this bush. And it was me, him, and Derek, and we were ahead of you guys. So we were like ducking under this bush trying to hide, and Derek's like trying to get pictures, and we're like, get under this bush.
I had my rain jacket on. I was like, I maybe should put this on, and immediately after I put my rain jacket on, it pelted down. And my first thought was, man, I want to get quickly down the mountain as I can, and as long as we stayed in a group of 3, I figured it would be okay. And so we worked our way down, and the hail just picked up more and more, and not much to hide behind besides a maybe 3-foot shrub for 3 people. It wasn't the smartest thing, but you know, we just wanted to get down there because we were, like I said, we're in flooding area, and there was lightning.
I could see the lightning, and so I was like scared that like, because I heard about like how hikers die from lightning and stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna all get electrocuted on this rock, exposed rock. And I was like, we gotta get off this rock.
The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and when the hail started hitting me, I was like, oh Lord, please, it can't get any worse, can it? I'm not gonna lie, that's probably one of the scariest incidents in my life, but hey, we made it through.
By the time we make it to the bottom, just kind of reflecting on what all just happened, trying to take it all in. It's wild.
I know it was dangerous. I know we're smiling about it now, but I wanted to say during that moment, this is the coolest thing ever, but I didn't want to. I know, just, stay calm. But to witness that in a desert was probably the best experience. Yeah. Because who gets to say that they witnessed a hailstorm in the desert?
So Mesa Verde was a different experience for me.
It was a lot of fun. I liked The first peak I think we went to, and we went out and you could see like really far out and it looked all green and flat land, and then you could see like snowy mountains, which I liked the difference in that.
That was pretty cool too, because you look over and you think, how far of a drop is that, and it makes you just want to stand there and stay there forever and just think about that kind of stuff.
I love the city in the hills, in the side of a mountain. I didn't think that was possible, honestly, because the way, especially I don't know how they got down there. It was something completely different from every other park.
It was interesting seeing all the relics left over, the housing, the establishments they made, the dwellings they had, and then you can see a picture of it, but seeing the dwelling in the side of the mountain face like that was fascinating. It was seeing why they chose that location, how they dug all that out, and why there was maybe a single dwelling on the opposite side of the canyon there, and how that one was just by itself, maybe a single or two dwellings there.
I'm impressed that the Anasazi managed to build all of those cliff dwellings in a time before when they didn't have concrete, they didn't really have measuring devices. They cut all those things to scale, and the fact that they stayed warm in the winter and cool in the summer most of the time, I mean, it just goes to show you don't have to have air conditioning to make it, but it sure helps. The fact that they were able to make these things basically inside the hollow of a mountain, and truth be told, one of the most incredible things was they put in so much workmanship. You can obviously see these are quality buildings, at least at the time they were. And then next thing you know, archaeologically speaking, in the blink of an eye, they vanished.
We had a good time over there too. Me and Tristan and Jonathan were pretending we're little prairie dogs poking our heads out, and Sconyers videotaped it, and he said that was probably one of the most amusing things we've done, and I thought it was pretty amusing too. I got to laugh at that.
But it was really cool to see a historical past, something like that, because you're looking at a timeline and you're envisioning people there, but they're not there, and it's you kind of wish you could go back in time and see that kind of stuff. When we were driving in, you could see three ecosystems. You could see desert, sand, and then snow-capped mountains. And it's like, what? Yeah. Blows your mind. And then you go inside and you learn how the sand formed, and it's just, it makes, I wish that I was a national park ranger for starting, wish I could live forever and just see that stuff happen.
I was just impressed at the sheer scale of this. I mean, it was a monstrous-sized national park.
But it was actually just two solid mountains and then a chunk of sand in the middle. Like, it looked misplaced, like some giant tried to build a sand castle there and left it.
Great Sand Dunes was something that seemed unnatural to me. It didn't seem like it could be real. I'm glad they have something in the visitation center where it explained what the sand dunes, how they formed, what they do, and all that stuff. It literally looks like, someone just put a pile of sand there and just kept piling it up and like, you know what, we can make this into a national park.
It's a glorious road life is what we got here.
What we got going? Yeah, it was
we're gonna run out of gas.
That's all right.
We
Thank
were
you.
running on
And I forgot to get
literally.
it.
1, 2, 3, Natty Parks!
It was awesome overall, I'd have to say. Just all the parks were great. All the people were great. It was a great group to go with. Yeah, we got to have a lot of fun. Was really busy. Didn't get a whole lot of sleep. But we got to see some pretty amazing places, and a lot of them in a very short time.
I feel like the national parks really helped me recognize what I want to do, who I want to be, and no one can tell me otherwise. But I think the national parks class is probably the best class.
And we all talked about what we're thankful for. And I don't remember what everyone was thankful for, but a majority of the people said that we're just thankful for the opportunity that we have to be able to go to a national parks class, like go to a college that offers a national parks class, and be able to spend a spring break not only learning but just having fun at the same time.
It was also enjoyable just to have the students out with just me and sort of see how they are outside. See them explore what made them want to take pictures of things, what got them more interested in, as opposed to others. Also helped me sort of gauge how comfortable they were outside. Of course, they all chose to join this trip and join this class. But how are they when they're actually out there? And it was interesting seeing all the individual personalities come out.
I mean, I'd known these guys. Some of them I'd known since I was a freshman, and some of them I'd traveled all across the state with, heck, across different states with. But when it's just the small group of us, you really can't help but get to know somebody on a trip like this. And we were all just having a good time. We were just being campers.
I really enjoyed everything. I think it's going to be something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. I'm taking my family back and plan a different trip. Like definitely hit Zion, give Arches a new try. Go through and just maybe spend a month in these parks and just take my time and enjoy it.
It helped me get like a grasp. It helped me actually know what I want to do as like when I want to get older, like what I'm actually passionate about, I guess. And like it kind of helps you explore like just why we like national parks. And I think that's like really important for people to understand, like because like national parks to me is like the American spirit, and like everyone should understand why we have them.
Probably something I'm going to remember, when I'm an old lady. And it's just going to be one of those things that, you can't say no to this, because if you're into wilderness and if you see wilderness as a luxury, look at it as a necessity, kind of like what Edward Abbey said. I think witnessing these parks was kind of life-changing. As you come to graduate, you look back and what you did in your college years, and you think, I did that national parks trip.
Road trips are as much about the people who take them as they are about the places that they go. There is no better way to get to know someone than to spend some time sitting next to them in a car on a trip. In the end, this trip took these people to some amazing places that will forever bond the members of this group to each other. For the rest of their lives, they will remember the people in the car with them and the parks that brought them together.
3. Natty Parks!